Björk has proven herself time and time again as a near flawless artist. Her costume designs are top notch, her concepts are spot on, every single one of her albums are near impossible to forget, well, almost, and she's overall just a very unique and fun person to be around. And to celebrate the release of her latest album, Fusora, which is an absolute journey and a half and I would highly recommend it, I would like to talk about an aspect of Björk's career that no one ever talks about: her movies. Granted that some of the films she starred in are unconventional to the point of turning off the average moviegoer, but they're some of the most unique and interesting movies you'll ever have the pleasure of watching. Now, before we start, I need to set a few ground rules for this review so that things don't get too convoluted. I won't be including any documentaries, so that means the Sparks Brothers and Out of Thin Air are off the table. I'm only going to include films that she had a major role in, so I won't be able to talk about Atropos. And lastly, no live shows. There's nothing more dissatisfying than to come out of a massive movie marathon and Biophilia Live ends up being my favorite one. I'm also not going to be able to include drawing Restraint 9 since tracking down a physical copy of this thing online is near impossible. I was able to find a clean copy of Glurbrot on YouTube, but I decided to hold off on it because I'm just not ready to watch an entire movie in Icelandic without subtitles. I've also heard that Björk's acting there isn't very good, so it's probably for the best. Even with all those out of the equation, we still have 3 massive films to cover, so with that being said, get your chaotic beats ready, dress up in your finest surreal attire, and make sure that you have an abrasive admiration for Iceland, since today, we're gonna dive straight into the filmography of Björk. It is now my headcanon to say that this movie inspired Björk to make Pagan Poetry, which is an automatic 10 stars right there. The Juniper Tree, released in 1990, is Björk's feature-length debut performance. It has everything you would expect from a witch movie. It's eerie, it's magical, the script is simple yet innovative, and it's extremely boring. This is interesting? Yeah, this film didn't really do it for me. It's probably the only Björk film that I would consider to be not that great. Although Björk was only starting to get into acting, so I could kinda give her some leeway for that. In fact, I don't even have any problems with the acting at all. I think it's perfectly serviceable enough. It's the direction that bothers me. I guess that it was trying to be the next Begotten, but it feels more out of place than where Björk started off doing Beatles covers. In all seriousness though, this is by far the cutest thing I've ever heard in my life. The one thing I have to praise the movie for is the cinematography. It is surprisingly really good. Each shot just feels so grandiose, like it has a purpose. A purpose to make you feel like you're being watched. That alone kind of bumps this up from a 5 to a 6 out of 10, but that's still not that much, all things considered. Overall, this Letterboxd review of this movie said it best. Pagan poetry. Literally pagan poetry. Not even the shadow puppets could save it, and that's usually my jam. Jesus, Dancer in the Dark already? Lars von Trier is one of those directors that just gets right to the point, attacking your vision with a wide variety of sensitive topics like religion, brutality, sex, abuse, and tragedy. Some of these very topics are fairly visible here in Dancer in the Dark, which may win the title for the saddest film of all time. This film is horrendous when it comes to how this movie treats its main character Selma. Just like most of Björk's work, Dancer in the Dark takes us on a journey through every emotion possible. The songs are harrowing, and the cinematography is raw and unfocused, which mainly comes from von Trier's style of filmmaking, which is disorientating and reclusive, which makes Björk the main focus of every shot, and complements Selma's blindness as the frame becomes very limiting. It's no wonder Cannes gave her an award for Best Performance. The final half hour is extremely difficult to watch. I won't spoil the outcome, but let's just say I had to watch the opening of At World's End several times in order to justify it. Overall, I've never felt more manipulated by a musical before in my whole life, and in the case of this movie, it's thoroughly appreciated. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go take a shower so that I can wash the tear stains off my face. Like I said in the opening, I didn't get a chance to catch Drawing Distance 9 in time, but when I get the chance to see it, I'll probably make a separate review on it, so keep that in mind, okay?
Are these not just excuses?
Okay. Let me explain. I'm very aware that Björk isn't really the main character of this movie. In fact, she's only in it for a total of 3 minutes. But when am I ever going to get the chance to talk about this movie again? Nowhere. That's why. The Northman is a surreal and intense abstract portrayal of Norse mythology that not even the poor box office returnings will stop. An intense experience that's filled with nothing but unapologetic violent fight scenes, complicated character motivations, and the most insane depiction of Valhalla I have ever seen in a movie. Also, it wouldn't be a Robert Eggers film without some cryptic dialogue. Where do I even begin with this one? A plethora of unique and bizarre characters like a naked Willem Dafoe or a screeching Nicole Kidman. The beautiful cinematography that gives us a sense of what it was like back in the early 10th century, and the character of Amleth going through hell and back in order to avenge his father, who was killed by Claes Bang, is brutal yet captivating, which, bizarrely enough, got major backlash from modern audiences due to its portrayal of toxic masculinity, which goes to show that these elitists must have never seen the movie, since that's not what this movie is about. I bet they're still salty over Robert Pattinson's death in the lighthouse or something like that. But I know what you're all asking. Where is Björk in The Northman?
Even though your brother stole my eyes, I see you.
Well, at least she's still putting her biophilia costume to good use. If I had to choose my favorite Björk performance out of the ones I've seen, it would probably be Selma from Dancer in the Dark, but Sirius comes very close. I adore her performance in it. She's eerie and cryptic, leaving a lasting impression of your understanding of Robert Eggers' work. It wasn't until I started doing some research for this video that I realized the script for that scene was actually written by John way before the Northman even began filming. They started out as lyrics to one of Björk's songs, and Eggers loved them so much he desperately wanted to use them in the script for his latest movie. This had to be one of the coolest pieces of behind-the-scenes information I've ever read about. Anyways, that's all I have for Björk's filmography. I would like to thank you all for joining me on this admittedly short journey, and it has been an absolute pleasure to guide you through it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see y'all soon.